should be showing up very shortly. All right. Hi, David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. How you doing?
Doing great, doing great. So, can you please go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and we'll get started. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm David Christensen. I'm currently the CEO of a company called MotorMeta. We are a startup that's building a platform for vehicle-based games. And we are currently wrestling with this very question that I'm speaking on today. I think the title is Beyond Play2Earn, Utility of NFTs in Gaming. And I'm certainly not an expert in this space. I think anyone who says they are an expert in this space are probably full of crap, because I think it's such an emerging space right now. And I think that there are a lot of folks who are triangulating on getting it right, but I'm not sure that anyone has quite yet. So I don't know that I'll be able to. This is probably a very intelligent group of developers, so I probably won't be able to teach much, but my hope in giving this talk is just to be able to maybe provoke some thoughts and let people sort of think about NFTs and Web3 elements within their games. So again, one of the things I want to do as well is to say that I sort of differentiate play-to-earn games from traditional games. And I think I see play-to-earn and GameFi as sort of staking, farming, liquidity, essentially DeFi with a bit of a game wrapper around it. I'm not sure if they're games. I'm not sure if they're fun, but they're essentially play-to-earn. Whereas I feel traditional games with NFTs incorporated or digital asset ownership incorporated is kind of where the industry is going, and I think it's certainly going to be the focus of my talk. So maybe I'll change the title to Beyond Play-to-Earn: Utility and NFTs in Traditional Gaming, as opposed to just gaming. And then just a quick background on who I am. I started my career a while ago as a tax attorney. I quickly transitioned into representing game developers, of course, in the traditional gaming space. From there, I went to Universal Interactive, which was Universal Pictures gaming division. That's now part of Activision Blizzard. I was also with Sony Online Entertainment, which was the developer of EverQuest and a couple other titles, all most massively multiplayer online games. And the other interesting company that I've been with, I headed up business development for a company called IGE. I don't know if anyone remembers IGE, but IGE was the largest real money trading platform in the space. And a lot of gamers hated us. A lot of publishers hated us because we were allowing gamers to essentially play to earn. And this is 15 years ago. And we did a lot of surveys. We because we were always sort of conscientious of our image in the space and wanting gamers to utilize our platform, and try to get them to understand what it was. We commissioned a lot of surveys through third parties. And what was really interesting was we sort of got an early look at how gamers felt about their digital assets and the ownership thereof. And it was interesting because what we saw in these surveys were a lot of gamers actually thought they owned their digital assets, right? They believed they did own their digital assets. They hadn't read the end user licensing agreement that people just sort of click through in the beginning. So they didn't know that the developer, the publisher, could sunset the game at any time, could nuke their character at any time. So people literally thought they owned the assets in the game. There was another group of people who felt that they should own them, that they were entitled to own them, that they did the work, they did the heavy lifting to build up these characters and assets, and so they should own them. And then there was another group that was interesting. I always found this to be so interesting. There was a sentiment. They were sentimental about their assets. I actually had a close friend who had played Ultima Online, and I think he had an elf, and I can't remember what the highest level was, 60 or 80 maybe, and he had leveled it all the way up. And this guy had stopped playing the game when I met him. He hadn't played the game for 2 or 2.5 years, but he continued to pay the $14.99 a month because he just couldn't bring himself to let his character die. And he thought, if I stop paying the monthly subscription fee, all that hard work is going to be gone. So I think there's, what I learned long ago is there's definitely a sentiment on the part of gamers that they either are entitled to or should or do own digital assets. So I think there is precedent for what's happening today. And it was interesting being at IGE a lot. It also allowed me to get into crypto early because everyone from IGE, the founders are all in the space still today in the crypto space. So one of the founders was a guy named Brock Pierce. He's the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation, and he's always on like Fox Business News and other things talking about crypto. Same thing, Jonathan Yantis, who's the founder of Wax, was one of the founders at IGE. So we've all been looking at this space for many years. But I didn't start looking at play-to-earn games until about a year ago. And I was somewhat blown away by the revenues from Axie Infinity, and as I think as everyone was. And I started looking at some of the revenues and even the market cap, using their tokens, in relation to Epic and Fortnite or the value coming out of Minecraft, and it was quite stunning. And so, like many people, I started to think, man, this is the future. And then in about August of last year, I read an article in Medium, and I can't remember the exact title, but it basically said, play to earn is destined to fail. It was sort of sounding the alarm bell on play to earn. And, so the deeper I dug, it doesn't take much to sort of pull at the thread and start to unravel the sweater of play to earn. And you start to see that if the game's core reason to exist is for the gamers to make money, then it quickly is no longer a game. And I always like to use the analogy of going to see a movie, right? People who play games, for the most part, people who play games are doing it as an escape, just as people who go to see a movie are doing the same thing. You don't want to think about the real world. You don't want to be pulled out of it's why when the guy next to you at the movie theater gets on his phone, it's so annoying because briefly it takes you out of the film. And I think that as game designers, designers need to be careful that what they do doesn't pull gamers out of the game, that they still feel like they're in the game, they're still playing and still having fun, right? That's the key. And so when the point becomes making money, it's difficult to keep that fun in the game. So, and I think the other problem too is just the economics, right? If the only utility of the tokens is to make money, then it very quickly becomes a seller's only marketplace, right? Because people are just coming in to make money, and that would be the only reason they buy. So, but interestingly enough, play to earn is not new, right? Having worked for this major real money trading platform, what we saw the same dynamic in World of Warcraft and in EverQuest and RuneScape. There were gold farmers. There were people who were just playing this game solely to gather gold, gather plat, and then turn around and sell it on eBay or sell it on our platform, probably sell it on Craigslist. The difference being that it didn't wholly ruin the game experience because not everyone was playing to earn, right? There was a fraction of the people who were there who were playing to earn, but the majority of people were still there to play the game because there was a heavy game mechanic, there was deep gameplay, and that play to earn, everyone knew it was there, but that's not why they were there. So, it seems like the way to balance this is to make sure that the game is fun enough that a real world economy or any sort of economy that allows you to take assets out of the game world doesn't ruin the experience. But then again, you look at Diablo 3 and what happened with the marketplace, and you wonder, what is that right balance? Because certainly that game was fun and people enjoyed playing it, but when they introduced the real world trading, it seems like it sort of went off the rails a little bit. Anyway, but I don't want to focus wholly on play to earn. I think I've spent enough time on play to earn, particularly because this talk is called Beyond Play to Earn. So let's focus a little bit more on NFTs and gaming, and maybe I can say a couple things that provoke some thoughts, and we'll have some time for QA afterwards as well. So, I think everyone at this point knows what an NFT. It's just digital asset ownership, or it's a virtual certificate of certificate of authentication, certificate of authenticity, excuse me, of a digital item, right? And I think, when it comes to traditional gaming and trying to figure out how to work digital asset ownership into traditional gaming, I almost want to erase the term NFT, because I feel like it's gotten such a sort of a bad rap with gamers that I almost want to just call it digital asset ownership, because they already understand it to be that. So it's like, why do we need to use that term? So, so I've discussed this concept a lot with gamers, and most don't have an issue with digital asset ownership. Most don't have an issue, like I mentioned earlier. For years we've known that gamers maybe want to or should own their assets. So I just think calling it NFTs at this time might not be the best way to go. So I'm going to change the title of this talk again to Beyond Play to Earn: Utility of Digital Asset Ownership in Traditional Gaming. So I think we're keying in on what this conversation is really about. So I think, and one thing I want to stress, and I think this is always worth asking yourself as developer, is why are we doing this on blockchain? Right? Ask yourself, whatever you're doing on blockchain, ask yourself if it can be done off blockchain. And that's not to say that it should be or shouldn't be, right? But it is. I think it's worth thinking that, having that conversation amongst yourselves in your development studio to understand, is it, because if the answer is just because NFTs are sexy or hot, or then it's not the right reason. And even in a market like we have right now, even if it's for fundraising, it's probably the wrong reason as well. So I think it's worth, when you're looking at digital asset ownership inside of your games, look at why you have it. How does it supplement gameplay? How does it make the experience richer for a gamer? Don't just do it because blockchain's sexy and because it's the latest thing, right? If you can do it off chain, figure out why doing it on chain brings more to the gamer. So, because think about it, Electronic Arts, this is going to be a bad example probably, but Electronic Arts could create an avatar and let you bring it from game to game, right? And they could do that on their own database. It would be centralized, obviously. Wouldn't be on chain. Now, of course, and they could, maybe you could take an avatar from, I don't know, from a racing game and bring it into FIFA. It'd be kind of strange because you want to play with your favorite players. But you could easily see bringing an avatar from one game to another, particularly when it's all owned by the same publisher or developer. The problem is that's a custodial relationship, and Electronic Arts is trying to sell the company at the moment, right? I just saw something about a failed conversation with, I can't remember, Disney or Amazon or something. And so, what if Disney or Amazon has a different policy and they don't want gamers to own their digital assets? So you're still at the sort of the behest of that developer. It's still a custodial relationship. So I think, if you look at digital asset ownership as one of the benefits of blockchain, and you can see that non-custodial relationship, then there in and of itself might be one of the reasons why you do some of this on blockchain. And so so maybe with that, I finally have the title of this talk, which is Beyond Play to Earn: Utility of Non-Custodial Digital Asset Ownership in Traditional Gaming. So I think we finally arrived at the right title for this. And then let's talk about utility a little bit, right? Because I think right now, gaming, I guess, along with metaverse, but gaming specifically is the one place where you can truly find utility for digital assets, right? Because you can use them in game. And I don't mean use to produce economic benefits. I mean use to produce benefits within the game, make the game more fun, allow you into exclusive areas, just do more, right? So I think there are a lot. I think there is a lot of utility that can be in game. That is what makes NFTs exciting, or digital asset ownership exciting for the gaming space, is because sort of by its nature, what do you do in games? You use digital assets. Great. So there's a utility. At MotorMeta, we're building utility for our owners of their digital assets that are specific to those assets being kept in game. We're trying to do things that motivate gamers to keep those assets in game. And I think that is, and again, I'm not saying we have it right, but I think that might be the key. That is, it's okay if some people want to take their digital assets and sell them outside of the game, but there has to be a reason for them to keep those assets in the game. And I don't think that utility has to be tied to how much they can earn later on those assets. I think it needs to be tied to what they can do in the game. So I think the way that you can do this, I guess you need to make the draw of keeping the own digital asset in the game more interesting or more powerful than the draw of taking that digital asset out of the game. And I think and I don't know, I'm not saying I know how to do that, but I just, again, it's sort of to provoke some thought around this. And there's different ways to do that, right? So you can do content that's exclusive to people who own their digital asset versus people who haven't minted their asset and don't own it. So, for example, you could see battle passes that were exclusive to folks who own their digital assets, or exclusive maps or exclusive characters being offered. You could even see where different tracks or even battles were exclusive to folks who own their digital assets. Tournaments is sort of an easy example. You organize tournaments for folks who own their digital assets. In the case of MotorMeta, we're talking about tournaments for people who own their vehicle. People who have minted their vehicle and keep it in game, they can participate in tournaments. Of course, it depends on the type of game, right? For an RPG, it might be that there's additional uses for items. I mean, I think one thing that we're talking about internally, and again, I'm not saying this is the right way, but just something to think about, is we're really pushing a not better experience for digital asset ownership, but a different experience, right? Maybe it's a broader experience, right? So it's sort of, when it comes to like card games, you could play a card game without having the best cards, but it gives a different experience when you have additional cards, right? So if there's a way to make the experience, again, not better, but just different, and maybe a little more full. So maybe it's an extra track, or it's an extra quest, or it's an extra challenge in a battle pass that you can only have when you have digital asset ownership. We think that's a way to provide a utility that doesn't necessarily make traditional gamers who want to stay in a free-to-play section, it doesn't make them feel like they have to own their vehicle, or make them angry. You don't get this big backlash from the community saying, oh, you have to own an NFT or this game sucks. And then the other thing that I think, if you have the right platform, and this is something that we're really focused on at MotorMeta, is we want to have a pipeline of games. So if you own a digital asset, in our case, a vehicle, you can take that from our first game, Blitz GT, to our second game, to our third game, and have similar utility across games. And again, we think that's another way of giving these digital asset ownership utility, because a user who's built up an asset might say, oh, well, I've got this great asset. Sure, I'd love to try your second game. So we think that's a way to give the assets some durable value, but also some durable utility within game. And there's probably also out of game utilities that developers can provide to their digital asset owners. Promotional events, physical items, merch. Obviously, there's merch and collectibles. Then of course there's governance. It doesn't have to be in the form of a DAO, but there could be ways that owners are tapped to help with game development or help decide what a future map might look like. And then I think finally the most obvious, sort of to bring this talk full circle, the most obvious out of game utility is earning. But again, as long as the value of the buyers is to experience in-game utility, right? You can always, there's nothing wrong with allowing a user who's sort of finished their life cycle in your game and has a great asset, and now they decide, well, I want to get something back. I want to sell this to someone who is either playing the game or hasn't tried the game yet. That's fine, as long as that asset has value to the buyer to experience something in-game. I think that's the most difficult part, is making the in-game experience the highest and best use of the digital asset, as opposed to selling it, right? So I mean, make the games fun, maybe increase the supply of the assets, and if you figure out how to make the game so fun, and I think this is the holy grail, right? I mean, I think this is what everyone should be asking themselves: how do I make this so fun that people want to play regardless of whether or not they can own their assets or cash out? And then how do I keep the economy from breaking the game? That's the holy grail, obviously. And I think that some of that comes down to just making sure that the utility for digital assets that are owned in the game outweighs the value of selling them outside of the game. So I think I think beyond play to earn, utility of non-custodial digital asset ownership in traditional gaming. I think that was the correct title. So I don't know if how they're doing QA, if they're doing it typed, or if we want to open it up to questions. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so at the bottom, you should see something. It says call to action, ask a question. And when someone asks a question, it will appear in that little box, and then you can answer it. So if anyone from the audience has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask. David, are you able to read it, or would you like me to read it?
Go ahead.
Okay, so how do you see bringing the company's players who are strongly anti-blockchain?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what we're talking about internally, and I think it's a couple things. I've talked to a couple of blockchains who are sort of game focused, and one of the things they're recommending is, as I mentioned in my conversation, don't talk about NFTs, right? Don't talk about play to earn. Don't even talk about earn, because those are all big turnoffs for traditional gamers, right? So because they're afraid it's just going to be a Ponzi-nomics game, and it's really not going to be about the game. It's going to be about that. So I think making a fun game is where you should start. I mean, you should always have the Web3 elements in the back of your mind while you're developing, because you don't want that to break the game. But you have to make sure you've got a fun gameplay mechanic, and that's easier said than done, obviously. If everyone can make a fun game, then they'd all be hits. So, but you have to make a very compelling game, and I think you have to have enough. We look at the Call of Duty Warzone model as a way to do this, right? Like, have a free to play part of the game that's very robust and very fun, and bring gamers in, but then have an additional layer or part of the game that's, again, not better, but a different fun for digital asset owners.
Okay, and then there's just a follow-up comment to that question. And Eric is saying, I think breaking into consoles will be the holy grail of getting mass adoption.
Yeah, and I think the only, and I'm not a coder, so the only thing I wonder there is when you have first party approvals, what will they say about how you take digital assets out of the games that are on their consoles, right? Will Sony allow you to offer digital assets for ownership on the console? Will they have a problem with NFTs? We'll see.
Okay, awesome. Does anyone else from our audience have any other questions? feel free to either type it in the chat or you can scroll down and click on ask a question, and then you can ask your question. Are those wind chimes that I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice.
Sorry.
Sounds great. No, I think it's wonderful. I actually should get some. Okay. Anyways, super off topic. Okay. All right. Let's see. Sony NFT store coming soon, brought to you by EA. Yeah.
Is there really a Sony NFT store coming, or is Eric joking?
I'm not sure. I know GameStop has an NFT piece coming. I'm not sure about Sony though. And then Joe is saying I could see Sony being on board. Yeah, we'll have to see in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all big gaming companies maybe. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times these big companies have the luxury of being sort of, they can move slowly. They can be risk averse, right? They can buy their way into a market segment. Activision did this for years with mobile gaming. Activision didn't get into mobile for, man, it was 5 or 7 years after mobile games were hot. They just kept licensing out their products to Nokia and others so that they didn't have to take the risk. And they were learning the industry slowly before they finally started making acquisitions and getting into that space. So I think you'll see that with a lot of these big companies, right? Like Electronic Arts doesn't need to jump into NFTs now. They can afford to sit back, watch how the market develops, figure out the best strategy, and then jump in. I mean, they're obviously doing their internal research now, but they just have the luxury, being a larger company, of not having to jump in.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Eric said he was just joking about Sony. So, all right, David. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That was wonderful. We really appreciate you being here. And we definitely look forward to future talks with you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Happy Father's Day to you if you're a dad, if you celebrate.
I am.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you so much. All right, take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. So now we are going to be talking about bots. Fun stuff.
Hi, everyone. Let's talk about bots. So, my name is Zane. I am the resident DJ at Block, which is an